Okay, I think we'll get started. And prior to, I have a couple announcements prior to getting going with the mentorship presentation. The first of these has to do with Super Show tickets. There are some of you, or a couple of you, that have come to me about the Super Show, the dates of which are February 3 to 6 in Atlanta. Any of you that are interested, through the courtesy of the Weeder Corporation, they are providing us somewhere between 12 to 16 tickets, which I think are to be picked up there. The process that I'm not really sure of at this particular point. They have to inform us exactly how we're going to get our hands on the tickets. But the bottom line is that if you are interested in that, if you will see me, I'll start a list. It's kind of first come, first serve, except for those students, I think, in November had indicated an interest at that particular point in time, and we'll give them first choice. But if I don't think that between 12 and 16 is going to be a problem for us, in accommodating the students, unless we just have a rush. But if you're interested in attending the Super Show and would like tickets, see me and we'll generate a list. Kind of as an introduction and related to the mentorship thing, I would like to announce one possible mentorship site that may be of interest to someone, particularly if you have a baseball interest. There is during the coming summer, we have been contacted by a team in Kansas, which is sort of one of these quasi minor league teams that is staffed by collegians, and they're looking for someone in the management area to take a major role in assisting with that operation. It's in, Jeff, help me out there. It's in, what's the name of the town?
Liberal.
Yeah, Liberal, Kansas. Interesting place. But it's a 10-team league. It's one of those summer collegiate leagues. And if you have an interest in baseball and are interested in management, particularly in the professional side of it, this may be of interest to you, and either see myself or Jeff Newkirk. And with that, I would like to indicate that there are 3 people who in your management or in your mentorship internship program are very key to making that whole thing successful as far as this campus is concerned. First and foremost is your advisor, and that individual hopefully you have met, you've talked to, and you know who it is, and so on and so forth. You need to work with your advisor on your mentorship internship program. Secondly is Jeannie Kiss. Jeannie, raise your hand, stand up. Jeannie is the staff member who is in charge of kind of the record keeping, coordinating everything. She does all the file work. If you need forms and things, this is the person to see. And she probably knows as much about the mechanics of the mentorship program as anybody. And she will be keeping track of your records, hours, and all of that. Jeannie is located on the, the 4th office, the academic wing, on the right-hand side as you just first go in the door if you're not familiar with where she's located. And the third person is Jeff Newkirk. Jeff, you want to raise your hand back there? Jeff is a doctoral student here who is also working with the mentorship program. Jeff can help you to identify possible sites if you are having some difficulties. He spent a lot of time developing a data bank of previous sites that we've used and so on. So he can help match you up and also be able to answer questions if you would like. Jeff basically is available in the afternoons, give or take a little, sometimes there. And his office is as you head down towards the continuing ed wing. It is the first office on your left, right opposite classroom 3. So these 3 people are really pivotal in the mentorship program, your advisor, Jeannie, and Jeff. And between those 3, I'm sure that the vast majority of your questions, if not all of them, can be answered. At this point, I would like to retreat from this mic and come down a little closer to you and hopefully be able to speak without the mic. And that not all of you have this mentorship internship handbook, because the bookstore has run out of them and the new copies have not been received as yet. So what I would like you to do is kind of consolidate in the middle of the chair section there, and if possible, if you don't have a mentorship internship handbook, to sit next to someone that does, and you can look on with them. So with that, if we can kind of reshuffle here, I can get away from this mic and get down closer to you.
Just squeeze together there a little bit. Boss is going to take my coat off. You can stay. You can go. Okay, can everybody hear me? Do I have my gym voice in tune without the whistle? Can you hear me? Okay. Just a couple introductory remarks. For most of you, the mentorship internship facet of your academic program is going to be the most fascinating, the most interesting, perhaps part of your degree program, and certainly one that is that you want to attend to and to try to get the best possible situation for yourself that you can. It needs to be in the area of your major. That is, if you're sport administration, it should be in sport administration with kind of a broad definition of that, but it should include management responsibilities, sport coaching, and so on. So on. It is vitally important, in fact, it is a necessity that you have this book. And you should try to, as soon as this comes in, you should get hold of it as quickly as possible if you are contemplating doing either a mentorship or an internship. This book contains instructive materials. It contains all of the forms that are going to be needed for the experience. Now, what I'm going to try to do today is to walk you through an experience. In other words, starting from beginning and going through the end. That will not necessarily cover every little word that is in that handbook. So you do need to get hold of it, and you do need to just read through it much more carefully and comprehensively than what we are going to be able to cover today. If you have any questions during the course of the presentation, please do not hold those to the end. Ask them at the time, because if you're unsure of something, probably some of your friends are also equally unsure. It's just that you've got more gumption and you raise your hand and so on. So I'd rather deal with the questions as they come up rather than at the end, although certainly will give you an opportunity at the end to ask any questions. In identifying the mentorship or internship experience, there are a couple definitions that are needed, and that is the distinction between mentorship, internship, and practicum. A mentorship is a 24 quarter-hour experience. So you will register ultimately for 24 quarter hours, 18 of which are actual field experience, and the final 6 are a research project which is to be related to your mentorship, to the mentorship experience. An internship is also a field experience, but it consists of 12 quarter hours only. 12 quarter hours. Now, what do you do with the other 12? You really have two options. One is that you can take 12 additional hours of coursework. 3 4-quarter-hour courses, for instance. Or you can do a thesis for 12 quarter hours of credit. Now, I believe Dr. Ryder talked to some of you yesterday and over the last couple days about the advisability and feasibility of doing a thesis. I would certainly echo what she said. If any of you have any designs down the road, doesn't have to be next year, but down the road of getting into a doctoral program, it is to your advantage to do a thesis on a master's degree level. And the reason that I say that is twofold. One is that many institutions, when they evaluate potential doctoral students for admission, that will be a factor. Have they done a thesis on a master's degree level? And secondly, and importantly, just from a very selfish standpoint, it's much easier to do a doctoral dissertation if you have done a thesis, you kind of know the ropes, you've learned the research process, you understand what has to be done, and quite frankly, many of the mistakes that one can make in doing a research project of that type, you're going to make on a master's degree level and not on the, and therefore short circuit that on the doctoral level. So you might just as well go through the learning curve as much as possible on a master's degree level rather than on the doctoral level. Are there any questions about the distinctions between mentorship, internship, and I guess the third one is practicum. Practicum is a 12-quarter-hour credit which is based locally, either within the academy or kind of in the adjacent area. So it really doesn't vary from an internship. It only has to do with locality. Any questions about the distinctions between those three? All right.
Dr. DeSchriver?
Yeah.
The question that comes up quite a bit is, can I do it for less than 18 hours face-to-face?
If you do a mentorship, it is a 24-hour commitment on a master's degree level. If you do an internship, it is a 12 credit. Right, so those are the two options. If you decide that you are going to do a mentorship or an internship, and I'll tend probably to use those somewhat interchangeably. Much of the information I'm going to give you applies to both. It's not a matter of any qualitative difference. It is basically a matter of just quantitative difference in the number of quarter hours, except for that paper at the end of the mentorship. You should have, and I assume that most of you, although not all, are relatively new students. You should have started thinking about that in terms of a possible site like yesterday. It is not too early to become serious about identifying a mentorship site. The reason for that is that you need to figure anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for the processing of the paperwork through Ginny Kiss's office and through the institution. So that takes some time. And as you will see, there is some paperwork involved. It's not a case of saying, well, I want to go there and I'm going to start Monday, boom, that's it. It's not quite that simple. So there is paperwork involved, and you need to get started early and start thinking about it early on. The identification of the site is the primary responsibility of the student. The academy will assist you in any way that we possibly can. But the primary responsibility for the identification of the site is yours, not ours. We provide assistance, we provide resources available to you, but as far as making the contacts and things like that, that's up to you. What are you looking for? One, you're looking for something obviously in your area that I've already talked to you about. And also, you're looking for something that is of interest to you. You're going to spend a lot of time on that site, and you want to find something, a place that is attractive to you in terms of your professional goals, and you need to find something that you feel comfortable with. Thirdly, you need to find a mentor or a supervisor that you feel comfortable with, and it feels comfortable with you. So there are several factors there to consider. Once you have done that, and you're working now with your advisor, and your advisor gives you sort of the nod of approval that, yeah, this looks good, then you go see Jeannie Kiss down in the mentorship office, and she will give you a packet of, I think there are 3 forms in there that need to be filled out between you and the prospective mentor. The first is a request for contract. It's basically a one-page sheet which asks for specific information, your name, address, telephone number, your mentor's name, address, telephone number, some other kinds of things. There will also be a sheet on there that will ask between you and your mentor to fill out regarding your duties and responsibilities and learning objectives. So on this particular sheet, cooperatively, you and your prospective mentor will list the duties and responsibilities, and growing out of that, the learning objectives. That is what you expect to gain and what your mentor expects you to gain from that experience. And finally, I think there's a sheet, or there's at least a place to kind of declare or explain your work relationship to the field experience site. For most of you, since you are students without a job, this is not going to be a problem. The academy does have a rule and then an interpretation of the rule. The rule is that you are not to do your mentorship at the place or the site where you are full-time employed. Now, on occasion, that works a hardship for people. It is more of a problem in the summer than it is during the rest of the year, because most of you probably do not have a job. In the summer, we have people who come back who are employed. But let's, for instance, say that you do have a full-time place of employment, and you want, the only way that you can conceive of yourself doing a field experience is to do something in that workplace. That is a possibility, given an interpretation of 2 things. One is that your responsibilities must be new and distinctive from your full-time employment. In other words, if you are, say if you're in sport coaching and you are an assistant football coach, it is not appropriate for you to be doing something in football. So that's part of your responsibilities. So, yes?
What if you take a position as your intern? In other words, the new position.
Are you talking full-time or part-time?
Well, restricted earnings, so you'd be working full-time but getting paid part-time?
I would term that as being a part-time position. That's not full-time employment as a restricted earnings coach. And my interpretation is that that would be okay, as long as you're not full-time. The second thing there is that your supervisor cannot be in your direct supervisory loop. In other words, you cannot have a supervisor who is your immediate supervisor, that is the field experience supervisor. I'm going to use the term field experience because that will cut across both mentorships and internships and practicum. So I'm really talking about all of the possibilities at that particular point. So if you're a coach and you report directly to the athletic director, it is not appropriate for that athletic director to serve as your supervisor in the field experience. If you're in a high school and your immediate supervisor is the athletic director and you use a principal, okay, that's okay. Secondly, you cannot have a person that you are directly supervising. You're a head football coach and you've got an assistant football coach, even though the responsibilities may not be in football, but you supervise that person directly. That is not an appropriate supervisor. The reason for this is to avoid situations where there are conflicts, supervisory conflicts between yourself and either your immediate supervisor or the person that you are supervising. And I think you can probably understand the wisdom of that. There are some characteristics for the supervisor. One is that we would prefer on a master's degree level that the supervisor have a terminal degree for whatever area that is. Notice I said prefer. That is not always possible. It is probably more possible in sport medicine and in fitness management, where you get terminally prepared people for running clinics and things like that. In schoolwork, that may not be so possible. So the next thing is the requirement of a master's degree. That a master's degree is required of the supervisor on a if you're doing a master's level work. Now, if you are a doctoral candidate doing field experience, a terminally prepared person as the supervisor is an absolute must. There's no bending of that. Now you say, well, and we run this mostly into professional sports. I may have an answer for your question. Sure. Let me finish, and then if I don't, ask the question. Particularly in professional sports, outside the educational arena, we find people who have been in professional sports for a relatively long period of time and only have a master's degree. When you get into the business world of sport, into professional sport and things like that, the accent is definitely upon experience and performance, less upon degrees earned. In academia, in education, oftentimes it's the reverse of that. We do, on individual cases, look at mentors and make exceptions based upon what we call the Einstein theory. And I'll give you two examples. In both of these, in any case of where a student would like an exception to the master's degree qualification required terminal degree preferred regulation, that goes before the academic committee. You fill out a petition, you get a resume of the individual, and you submit it to the academic committee. Recently, there was again, has to do, I think, with minor league baseball, where a person, the prospective mentor, had everything completed except the research project for the master's degree. Now, this person's master's degree work was in 1974, so the truth of the matter was they probably had no intention of really completing that master's degree because in his line of work he doesn't need it. But since 1974 to now, he has served as the general manager of a minor league baseball team, been involved in marketing and administration of it, and currently a minor league team. This individual is the vice president and general manager in charge of the entire business operation and marketing operation. The committee reviewed that credential and felt that under the Einstein theory that this particular mentor qualified as a supervisor and approved it. And we had another student earlier who submitted one, and there was some questioning of it. I think ultimately it was approved in my recollection. But the individual had just gotten a degree in 1992 in communications, had some prior work experience as an associate or sort of assistant SID at large Division I institutions. The committee reviewed that with much greater scrutiny. And I guess the overriding factor here was that the location was a very desirable one. So sometimes that's a factor too. We've had people connected with the Super Bowl, with the Senior Bowl, excuse me, and things like that, where large Division I football powers, things that status, where it's just such a great opportunity for the student and for the academy to get that exposure that the academy has looked at that. Now, does that help, or do you have a question?
Well, my question was, does the degree that the mentor have, does that necessarily have to be the same degree that they're shooting for?
No. The overriding concern here is that you're doing your mentorship in an appropriate area for your major. People change careers all the time. I mean, if we help with that one, we really have problems. So many of you will wind up doing things that your degree would seem to be a little strange fit.
When you mentioned field supervisor, you use that interchangeably with mentor, right?
Yeah, I'm just using field supervisor.
All right. Well, then, let's say you take a position as an intern as an assistant football coach, and you would not suggest then that the head football coach be your mentor?
He's your immediate supervisor. You're taking that position.
Yeah.
That would be a no-no.
Then who would you suggest, for example?
It might be the athletic director. The athletic director.
I mean, I could say if I was an assistant coach, I could say that the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator would be my immediate supervisor. I mean, when you want someone who's going to have a lot of exposure to what you're doing, I mean, the athletic director might not be heavily involved with what you're performing.
The reason that we have to be careful about this, is the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools, because they will audit our academic records. And one of the things that they are concerned about is that student-supervisor relationship and what that is. And their feeling is, and it's our feeling also, that if you're working for someone and that someone academically is probably going to be reluctant to, if warranted, to give a bad recommendation when in fact, if you're working for them. Now, there is a strategy, like everything else. And that is that you can have the athletic director, assuming that he or she is qualified, serve as your mentor. And that mentor would be the mentor of record. He or she would sign all the evaluation forms and do everything like that. The day-to-day supervision of the mentorship could be done by the head football coach, who would in turn report his perceptions give his evaluation of your work to the athletic director. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but that would be a feasible solution. If you were an assistant, you could use the athletic director, that would be okay.
Because there's a person in between you, the head coach. Now, you've got your prospective mentor, and you fill out all of the paperwork. There are a couple of other things that we need. We need a current resume from your prospective mentor, and we need either a copy of their transcript, preferably, or a copy of the degree. Terminal degree. We don't need a copy of all transcripts. We don't need a copy of all degrees. All we need is a copy of the highest degree that individual has, or the transcript showing the highest degree. We would prefer transcripts, but I can tell you quite frankly that there can be a problem there. In education, the releasing of transcripts and giving them to institutions is generally not a problem. People are used to that. Do it all the time. However, if you get into fitness management, and particularly in sport medicine, and particularly if you are dealing with the medical community, they are very, very reluctant to have their transcripts floating around. I guess, they don't want to have people see that they got a C in brain surgery or something like that when they are a brain surgeon. So they don't like to give out those transcripts. Okay. Then in substitution of that, a copy of their highest degree is acceptable. So when you either give to Jeannie or send back to Jeannie, you're going to provide her with the completed request for contract, the statement about work experience and job responsibilities as to whether you're working full-time there or not. You are going to provide a list of duties and responsibilities and learning objectives, which will be signed by both the prospective supervisor and yourself. And finally, you need to provide either a transcript or a copy of the degree and a current resume of your prospective mentor. When all of that is together, it will be given as a packet to your advisor for his or her review. They sign off on it. It comes to either Dr. Ryder or myself, and we sign off on it, give it back to Jeannie Kiss, and she will then issue a contract. Now, the contract is a standard contract, and it has a number of provisions. It is a three-part contract, which is signed first by you, by the mentor representing the organization, and finally by either Dr. Ryder or myself representing the institution. In the case of educational institutions, we generally do not have any questions, any problems dealing with that contract. Things go smooth. It is in the area sometimes of sport fitness management and sport medicine where we have on occasion some problems with the contract. And the reason for that is that the institution generally, or oftentimes, the agency oftentimes has a regulation that any contract which is to be signed by that agency is to be reviewed by its lawyers. Now you've got the legal eagles mucking around in the whole thing, and they want to change the contract. There are a couple provisions in that contract that characteristically they want to change. If that happens to you, then you need to alert your advisor immediately as to that and ask the agency to put those things in writing as to what they want to change, and they are sent back here. If they are, from a legal standpoint, somewhat innocuous, that is, it really doesn't have any substantial change in the contract, in the content and the intent of the contract, I can sign off on those. If, however, there is a substantial change, a real change of substance within the contract, then I'm going to have to send that to our legal counsel, and now you got two lawyers talking to one another. And that is going to delay the process. One of the things that you have to understand is that you are not to start your field experience, the actual work, until all three parties have signed the contract. And the reason for that is that you are covered by the Academy for liability insurance, I believe, up to $1 million. That insurance coverage only kicks in when there is a signed contract in place. So there are a couple things that you need to know about that. One, technically you're not supposed to work. Secondly, it is my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, that Sandy Myers, the coordinator of records, will not process your registration for mentorship or internship credits until she has a copy of the signed contract on file.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. This is why I'm saying to you that think of at least of a month in advance. Give the whole process at least 4 weeks to play out. You'll save yourself a lot of headache, a lot of conceivable heartaches over this if you can do it. If you get it done, hey, if you get it done in a week, it's no big deal. It's done. Yes?
Can you do it now? Can you do it now and then go in August?
Yep. Yep. You will commit to some dates, but the dates can be changed. We can put an addendum to that. That's not a big deal. We can change the dates. We can move them up, move them back, make them longer, whatever. Chin?
Yeah. So about the procedure, we have already got the learning objective set out. We show it to the mentor, to the supervisor. And then after that, what is the process actually I get from you? Am I supposed to go back to my advisor and show him and say, well, this is what my supervisor and I have agreed on, and is it all right with you? And then start requesting for contract, or is it after that then immediately sends a letter to the supervisor and says, okay, we have been informed that la la la, please could you send us a transcript? Is that the way it's done? Or?
It should. What you want to do is you want to get all of that paperwork submitted at the same time in a single packet. Okay, get that together. Now, you don't. What happens in terms of the duties and responsibilities and learning objectives,
Yeah.
Chin, is that those will come in that packet. If they're okay, the advisor will sign off on the thing, and the contract will be issued, and everything.
Okay, who is it that asks for the transcript or the
Student.
Or even I go and ask? Because
Yeah.
I was the-
What
under
you
the
do
impression
is you go in and ask. You say that the academy needs this. Now, if the supervisor says, fine, but says, I will send that directly to the academy, then what you do is you just give that person the name of Jeannie Kiss.
Because all he needs to submit is that, right? That's all. I mean, it's the terminal degree of the transcript. That's all the.
And resume.
And resume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, some persons might have a difficulty saying, well, hey, I'll provide the transcript, but I don't want to have the students see it. Okay. Just say, give them the address, Jeannie Kiss, Sports Academy.
So I submit, he can submit his transcript separately, and then I submit the learning objectives together with a contract and get my, together with a request for a contract for my supervisor to sign, and everything goes at the same time.
Yeah.
The
If the paperwork comes in here, we'll match the paperwork up. It's a little bit easier for Jeannie if it comes in as a packet, but we can match the paperwork.
Okay, sorry, because I was under the understanding that, I thought from what I read inside the book that the academy writes to the supervisor and then requests for the supervisor to send you the transcript.
No, what will happen is if the packet is deficient of some records, then Jeannie will get on the phone either to the student or to the supervisor and say, look, we are missing your current resume or your transcript. We really can't process this and let a contract until this is complete. Can you expedite that? So we react to things that are missing.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought inside the file here had an example letter of what the academy sends to the supervisor asking for the transcript. That's what I thought.
Yeah, we really don't operate that.
Yeah, then it should be inside the book.
Okay, another common question that students ask is, particularly with the mentorship, is how many credits should I sign up for? And that's rather easy to figure out, or at least to get an estimate of. Recognize that both for the mentorship and the internship, the equivalency between the quarter hour of credit and the contact hour of work is 1 to 30. That is, there are 30 contact hours. You need to do 30 contact hours for every quarter hour of credit. So that means that in a 12-credit internship, how many hours are you responsible for?
360.
360. 12 times 30. And in a mentorship with 18 hours of 540. Okay. Now, you do not have to take all of those in one quarter. That can be split up. And in fact, many students do that. They'll go over a couple of quarters. What you need to do in terms of getting your what you register for is get an estimate of the number of hours that you're going to be working in that quarter. Okay. Let's say it's 300. You take 30 into 300 and you sign up for 10 quarter hours of credit. If you get a few more, those could be banked for your next quarter. If your supervisor says to you, look, at this coming quarter, you're going to be here 2 quarters, and the coming quarter is going to be kind of slim. I would think that you're talking maybe 180 hours, and you're doing a mentorship, and the rest of it, 360, is going to be in your next quarter. You sign up for 6 in that first quarter, and the other 12 in the second quarter.
Can you get all 360 hours completed in 9 weeks if you work 40 hours a week plus 9 to 5?
You can, yes. The problem that we have, that's fine, no problem with that shit. The problem we have is that students will sign up for 12, and they will wind up, and so that's 360, and let's say at the end of the quarter, you only have 200 hours. Now, as you will see when we talk about evaluation, one of the key factors in evaluation is that you have all your hours that you've contracted for completed. Well, you've only got 200 out of 360. Your chair or your advisor now only has, the only option that he or she has is to give you an hour. So what you would like to do, or what we would like to see you do, and I think what you would like to do, in order to get a grade at the end of the experience, the end of the quarter, is that very quickly after the end of the quarter, the final evaluation papers come in. It shows that you have the appropriate number of hours, and then a grade can be awarded based upon the evaluation. So try to fit or to match the prospective number of hours or the number of credits that you've got. Now, some of you will have a concern about financial aid. If you need credits for financial aid, it is possible, of course, to take independent study concurrently with that and get your financial aid up. Correct, Dr. Snyder?
8 submit.
Yeah. So it's a minimum of 8 to qualify for financial aid. Let's say you were taking 6 on a mentorship, then you could take a continuing ed course and get up to or over 8. Denise, do you have a question?
Can I take my comprehensive exam before doing my internship?
Before you do your internship? No.
Why don't you want to stretch out your internship hours over 2 quarters, and you won't be getting paid for the, why would somebody, I don't understand why I would want to do 6 hours for 10 weeks and 6 hours for another 10 weeks, and I can get it all done in the first 10 weeks.
The assumption is that you can get it all done.
Well, I don't understand why you wouldn't be able to do it. If you're going to go to work somewhere, why wouldn't you be able to work 9 to 5?
That depends upon the internship. If they only need you for a restricted point in time, usually you can. But that's just something you work out with the manager. The problem that we have is that the student and the supervisor don't talk. And therefore, the student, when he or she registers, doesn't have the vaguest idea of how many credits he should register for based upon the actual or the prospective number of work hours. So, if the prospective supervisor says to you, look, we're going to need you 40 hours for the next 10 weeks, you're going to have no problem getting your hours in. In fact, we could use you more than that. Fine. Yes.
As if you discuss with the supervisor and you come up with a certain amount of hours, but it turns out in the project there's something that will be more than you signed up for. Can there be some kind of amendment so you get more credit hours for it? Or?
Well, no, you don't get any more credit hours for it, because what you have to understand, you're going to, I suppose you could, but you're going to have to pay for it, and it doesn't fit in your degree program. Now, this was sort of my parting shot as you walked out the door, but since you raised the question, I'll answer it for you in the way that I feel is appropriate. You are only obligated for the hours that are within your contract. It is 360 or 540 hours. That is the minimum number of hours that you are obligated for in that that 3-way contract. If you are looking at it, however, practically, the internship mentorship experience is very, very key for most students in getting a job. And if the site has need for you on a realistic basis, says, look, we're really strapped, could you help out another day or two? It is your task at that point to make a judgment as to whether you want to do that or whether you want to say, no, I'm obligated for 360 hours, that's it, I'm going. Prevailing wisdom would suggest, at least to me, that it is prudent to go along with it, put your hours in. And in fact, many students do work more hours than what is minimally required per the contract. What you would like, minimally, in terms of the job market, walking away from that, is you would like a good, strong recommendation from your supervisor. You would, in some cases, that mentorship or internship may lead directly to a job. Maybe the next month a job opens up and the guy says, hey, boy, that mentor we had from the academy was really great. I wonder if he or she's got a job, get on the phone and give you a call. Or maybe they'll have a job right there. I'm saying, within reason, short of exploitation, my feeling is, it is in your best interest to do what you have to do. Remember, you are the student, and in a sense, that supervisor, mentor is the employer. He's your boss. He or she is your boss. It's not that much different than having a regular job. Question? Back row, and then we'll move on.
Back to her question regarding the comps. What if you're doing your internship at the end of your, after you completed all of your classes? According to the manual.
The academic committee adopted a regulation, and I have to check the effective date. Maybe one of the faculty remembers.
I don't know, but I think in Chris's personal situation, he's going to be finishing all his coursework so that all he'll have left is the 12-hour internship.
Right.
You're an intern person.
Right.
Okay. So the way that the new wording reads is if you are within your last quarter of enrollment, you can take it. So your last quarter of enrollment would be your, So you could take comps in the spring, but I don't think you can take them in the winter though.
Now, we'd have to check the numbers.
I think we'd have to check. Okay.
Question?
I'm employed full-time, and I'm probably not having to do practical. Say if there's a change in my job and I'm transferred over, it's no longer practical for me to do that, and I have to change. Do you lose if I'm in the middle of my practicum and I have to move somewhere and establish a new one? Do I lose what I have to start all over? Is it
No.
cumulative?
We would look at that and figure out the equivalency between the number of hours completed and the program or order hours and make the adjustments. Which also offers another question or begs another question, and that is, can you do like a mentorship? Can you split it between two sites? The answer to that is yes. If you want to do that, you work with your advisor on doing that. It does entail the submission of 2 sets of paperwork, one for each of the sites. But students do that. And that's basically what would happen. Yes. Jake?
Yeah. How many hours can we do the mentorship scale
And what?
each day? How many hours can we put it?
There's no minimum. There's no minimum. Like, for instance, if you're doing a coaching, any of you that have coached recognize that there are some days that you put in 12, 15 hours in a day. So there is no specified maximum.
Like saying, like your hourly rate will take, you sign up for 6 hours, a day, that's 180 hours or whatever, and you actually work 200 hours. Do those extra 20 hours, you sign up for those, they go to the next quarter?
Yes, they can be applied to the next quarter.
Do you want to mention something to the students that the faculty did change the structure of comps in terms of now there are intro to research questions on comps and what society questions on comps, as well as questions from their major on the comps?
Well, I'll just briefly speak to it. And people who are going to take comps will get a handout as to the exact specifics of the exam. But starting fall quarter, we did change the composition of the comprehensives, in which basically there will be 16 questions on the examination spread across all of the areas of the master's degree curriculum, and that you will respond to 10 of those. So you'll have some choices, and they're grouped as to the exact specifics of the groupings and the exact mechanics of it. Once you sign up for the comps, you're given a handout that will explain that, and you can check with your advisor or Dr. Ryder or myself if you have any questions regarding that. Okay, unless there's some questions up to this point, let's proceed and move along here. You're now on the job. You're working. and things are going along well. There are some things in the area of paperwork that you need to do. If you open those of you that have this, the buff-colored daily log sheets are really for your use. Some advisors require at the end of the experience that these be returned, and some do not. That's a matter of individual preference. But this provides you with a day-to-day log as to your lesson plans, what you did, so on and so forth, and at the bottom you put down the number of contact hours. That will be of some importance to you. Keep one sheet per day. Yeah, hours. Okay. At the end of each week, then you fill out a weekly summary sheet of the activities and that you've done, the various events, so on and so forth with. So this is a summary of your 5, 6, 7 day daily log. This is to be signed by you and the student and the mentor or supervisor. You do not have to return these on a weekly basis. You can store these up and keep them till the end of the month. So this is this kind of aqua or bluish green sheet here. If you turn over to the pink sheets, you'll notice that this is a 30-day activity update. Now you take your weeklies, you summarize those. There is a place for your signature and your mentor's signature here. And you return, at the end of 30 days, you return the pink sheets, the blue sheet, and if you turn up to the front, I think there's a green sheet, which is a 30-day evaluation here, which is filled out by your mentor. Okay. So the green, the bluish green or aqua color, and the pink sheets are returned at the end of 30 days. Also at the end of 30 days, you should give your advisor here a telephone call to reestablish contact with him or her. Okay. So that is also part of the procedure, and your advisor will put a note in your file, telephone such and such a date, and a brief summary of that telephone call. Now, up front, it is very, very important for you, I think, to have an understanding with your supervisor that he or she will go over all evaluation reports with you at the time that the report is due. That's the monthly report and the final report, which I'm going to speak to. And the reason for that is that you have to understand that your advisor is responsible for determining and awarding the grade. To a large extent, that grade is going to be based upon the evaluations of your supervisor. Now, in a very rare, limited number of instances, this is what happens. Student gets a grade which they feel they do not deserve. They get the grade slip and they call the faculty member here and say, I got a B in the course and I really think I did A work. And I'm objecting. The faculty member says, basically, your objection and your concern is between you and your supervisor. That grade is based upon your supervisor's perception of your work. The next question that the your faculty member is likely to ask is, did you see the evaluation? And invariably the answer is no. So the time to work that difference out is prior to the submission of the final evaluation to the academy and to the faculty member here. If you have concerns at that point, work it out there. It's difficult to go back. Any questions about that? I think that's an understanding you need to have worked out literally from day one with your advisor. The end of the experience comes up for how many ever hours you have registered. Then this white sheet is filled out by your supervisor and returned. On that is a more complete evaluation. Also, the number of contact hours is needed. One of the things I want to go back on your weeklies and monthlies, if down at the bottom you can put in the number of contact hours that you have completed that week and for that 30-day period. Just write it in at the bottom. That's very helpful to Jean as she does that. So if you can kind of make a note to do that, of just putting the number of contact, and just write it down. You know, 100 contact hours for the month or whatever it is. Just write it down at the bottom. These white sheets, three pages, are returned to the academy. They go to the advisor, and the advisor then bases the grade principally upon this, upon your telephone conversations, and maybe any conversations that he or she may have had with the supervisor. Any questions about the field or the field experience part of the mentorship internship? Yes.
Yeah, we should see these evaluation forms before they're sent to the academy.
I strongly suggest, it's not a requirement, but I strongly suggest that you have an arrangement worked out with your supervisor that will allow you to do that. Yes.
Student checklist?
Pardon?
The student checklist is for our purpose?
Yeah, that's for your purposes to make sure procedurally.
I just want to make a point that the white final evaluation sheet should be sent in at the end of each quarter. So if you enroll in 2 different quarters, there should be one at the end of each quarter, because we'll be giving you a grade for the number of quarter units you've signed up for each quarter.
And that should be sent in as quickly as possible at the end of the quarter. Should be sent in. That's of great help to us. So you may have to prod your supervisor along a little bit and with a reminder or two along the way about getting those final evaluation sheets.
Yeah, actually, as far as the timing of that, grades are due from us on Friday of the 10th week, so the 10th week of the quarter. So if we don't have this in at that point, we'll put in an I on the grade card for you. So it's actually the 9th week that you really need to start getting that together, so that it would get to us by Friday of the 10th week.
Can you remind us when we call you?
If you ask, we'll probably bring what I would do if I were you is I would mark my calendar. Here's the 9th week of our schedule.
Can your internship begin in between quarters?
Yes. I was going to mention that there's that long break, between the fall quarter and the winter quarter. Assuming that you are under contract, you can work at that particular point. Let's say that you're under contract for the winter quarter. As long as the contract is in force, you could be working during that break and apply those hours to the winter quarter.
Or forward or backward?
Well,
I mean,
in keeping with Dr. Carroll's comments, we would hope that at the end of the fall quarter, the hours completed would have pretty much covered what you have registered for.
Right.
But if they haven't, then what you're going to do is you're going to get an I, and then the grade will be changed when you complete it. Just as long as you understand what's the meaning of the I. We would prefer to avoid, having to get a lot of I's, but, sometimes.
So if you started in August, but you knew you were going to be done by the end of the fall quarter, you can start, let's say, August 1st.
You can start August 1st.
And apply them to the fall
You can
quarter.
apply them to the fall quarter. The guiding principle is that you are to be under contract.
And once that contract starts, and you just count 9 weeks from there and then say, I got to finish my evaluation.
No.
The
Ninth
academic
week
calendar.
of the quarter,
Of the academic.
of the academic quarter. You're going to register for credits. You're going to register for 10 credits, and you're going to get a grade for those 10, say, at the end of the winter quarter. In order for your faculty advisor to be able to award you a grade, he or she is going to need that 9th, 10th week of the quarter.
So you can't say, if I start August 1, that's summer 2 session start, I can't apply for my internship grades to be completed until the end of fall.
Unless you have signed up for some credits during summer 2. If you signed up, say, for 2 credits in summer 2, you would get a grade at the end of summer 2. If you had signed up for, and some students have done this, have signed up for a couple of credits in a mini session, then they get a grade at the end of that mini session. You're going to get a grade at the end of the quarter for which you have registered.
So what if you go ahead and start your internship August 1 under through a contract, but don't apply until the fall because you don't want to have to do 3 times the work and you can do it just one time?
That's okay. As long as you're under contract.
When I can start my hours and then I can sign up for 12 hours in my internship as soon as the fall quarter starts. But I can already be working.
What do you mean by sign up?
Well, can I work under my contract starting in August and then
Apply those to the
apply those
fall?
to September? When September comes around and go, okay, I'm going to sign up for 12 hours internship.
You're going to sign up for 12 in the fall? Yes, you can, as long as
But
you're under
But
contract.
I've already worked from August to September.
As long as you're under contract. Right?
In the case of August, if you started in August, and you could do it in 2 ways. You could sign up for the fall term, and then you wouldn't be able to get a grade until at the end of the fall term. But another way of doing it is to sign up for the time between August 1st and the beginning of the fall term. Sign up for the number of hours that you think you can complete. Do that as summer 2. And then at the end of that period, you'll get a grade and that'll be complete. Then you can sign up for the fall term for the number of hours that you're going to complete there. In the case of November, where you have a real long time between November and the beginning of the winter term, it might be better to sign up for the number of quarter hours that you can complete over that interim period so that in January you can get a grade for that period. Otherwise, you're going to be going like almost 20 weeks with no grades, none whatsoever, and it would all come down as to one grade.
You can use the interim session as periods of registration. I think Brian's point is that in using them, you've got to make a reasonably accurate estimate of the number of hours that you're going to accrue in a rather short period of time. So to sign up for 12 hours, which we wouldn't let you do anyway, but just for hyperbole sake. So there's a lot of ways you can work it out, and the best thing is to work with your advisor to find out what best fits your needs.
You could conceivably start in November, and at the end of the winter term, have completed all 18 quarter credits. But if you tried to sign up for 18 quarter credits for the winter term, it would backfire because you're overloaded.
Yeah.
So it might be
16 's the
better
max.
if you're going to most of you will not be able to start your mentorship or internship on the first day of a quarter. So just realize how many contact hours can I complete within the quarter. If you've got 5 weeks left and you're working 40 hours a week, that's 200 hours. Sign up for 6 quarter credits. Then at the end of that period, you'll easily have completed your 180 contact hours.
But if you do that, that means you've got to do double this.
No.
You don't have to do double evaluation.
You have to do a pink sheet and green sheet every single calendar month. You need to do a white sheet every quarter, and it's probably better for your advisor on campus to have the two quarter reports than just one quarter report at the very end of all 18 credits. Secondly, if you did sign up for 18 credits, you still have that other 6 credits to think about for the research project. Where are you going to put those? That's another thing to think about. So it's...
There are a lot of configurations, and we could go through an endless number of possibilities. The point is that you need to sit down with your advisor and to see what the system will allow and what fits best into
Yeah, I think
your
the key is to figure out how many hours per week am I going to be working on my internship. That's number one, because that's going to give you an idea of how many contact hours you're going to complete within a period of time. And then if you follow our quarterly schedule and then have a quarterly report at the end of that period, it'll be best and easiest.
Let me just briefly speak to the research paper that is associated with mentorship. That's that last 6 hours. That can be registered for concurrently with field experience as long as the total number does not exceed 16. Some students try to condense the mentorship experience, that is 24, into two quarters. Some will spread it over 3 quarters. You do want to register for mentorship project separate from the mentorship itself. It's easier for Sandy Myers to keep track of that way. It's easier for your advisor. So in other words, instead of saying mentorship 12 credits, and included in that in your mind is 6 credits of field experience and 6 credits of mentorship project, register on the same sheet of paper 6 credits of mentorship, 6 credits of mentorship project. Okay, you're going to do a mentorship project. You need to work closely with your faculty advisor in securing approval of that. You need to give your advisor a prospectus as to what that research paper is going to be all about. Statement of the problem, indication of methodology, how it's related to the mentorship, and everything and that kind of thing. Doesn't have to be real long, but if you just go half-cocked off on your own, and it doesn't really meet the expectations of your faculty advisor, and you may have put a lot of work in, all for naught. The paper itself is to follow the guidelines that are found in the USSA publication guide, and the APA style. It's 5-chapter format or a modified 4-chapter format if that's more appropriate. Those mechanical kinds of things can be worked out with your advisor, but you want to work closely. The person that is really pivotal in that is your faculty advisor. Here, in terms of that research paper, it's your advisor is the person that counts, not the supervisor out in the field. So you want to work very, very closely with your advisor on that particular paper. Any questions? Can you? Yes, you can.
Whenever you start, I don't understand the hours, how,
theses, and if you don't have it complete, you're going to get an incomplete. But in terms of research projects, whether they be theses or dissertations or even mentorship projects, the awarding of an I is, that's not a big deal. It really
An incomplete is not a blemish on your record.
Yeah.
As soon as you complete the work, whether it's in a mentorship, internship, or a thesis, that I will change to a letter grade, and the I is gone forever. So it's not something that remains on your record.
And in no way affects your grade point.
We have how long to do it?
There's no specified period of time. As a master's student, you have statute of limitations for 3 years from the beginning to
I would recommend that if you are on a mentorship and you're going to be doing a research project, try to talk to your mentor fairly soon, maybe even before you start your mentorship, to start thinking of problems that you could do a research project on that would be interesting to the mentor and the mentorship site, because in many cases you can actually collect data at the mentorship site while you're working on your mentorship. And having data collected and having done quite a bit of your research work while you're on the mentorship, you'll have less to do when the mentorship is over.
Okay, any other questions? I'm sure that you'll have many more as you kind of really get involved in this, and you need, with those, take those to your advisor, talk to Jeannie, talk to Jeff, or either Dr. Ryder or myself. But it will fall into place for you. Clint?
I got things to balance, so I'm going to use the podium up here, even though we're a small group today. Number one, if you want to use the Eagle's Nest at any time, for example, we've had the cookout sponsored by Student Services and Alumni, and we had the coffee and donuts down at the Eagle's Nest. Some quarters, different students have gotten together and they've had carry-in supper, potluck. One student got together and had a crawfish boil. If you want to do anything like that, if you would see Student Services so that we could put in a reservation so that the security guard knows that you're going to use it and doesn't lock it up on that night, I'd appreciate that. Anybody here have an announcement about FCA being held at the Eagle's Nest?
Yeah, it's on Thursday at 6:30.
Thursday night of next week at 6:30 at the Eagle's Nest. And if you have other questions about FCA, see Rebecca Ron in the Student Services office. Any announcement about intramurals?
I don't know of any specific announcement, but just check the bulletin boards for upcoming events.
Okay, check the bulletin boards on intramurals. Next week's convocation will be a man by the name of Mackendy Gobelon, and he's from the Mobile Drug-Free County program, and what he's going to be talking on is really two topics at once: drugs in society and racism in society. And that, if you're taking sport and society, I think that course, that particular convocation will really fit in with the class. It also meets another requirement that we have from the federal government, saying that once a year we have to give a presentation on drug education, and I think you'll enjoy his presentation. It's a unique approach to drug education. Those that are taking the MAT, noise analogy test, that's at 1:30 today. Announcement that you may or may not have picked up, no classes on February 15th. That's Mardi Gras Day. Apparently you hadn't picked that up. Betty Lafferty of the Daphne Recreation Department, she's looking for a ballet teacher. If anybody is capable of teaching ballet, if you'll see me, I'll give you her number. I need to see two people, Charles Kinski and Pamela Caffey. Charles, I see you here. Where did I see Charles? Okay, see me afterwards. And then Pamela, is Pamela here? If anybody sees Pamela, would you tell her to either see me or Sandy Myers in Student Services? Comps were mentioned this morning. There's really an application that's required for graduation in comps, and you want to see Sandy Myers whenever you're ready to graduate or ready to take your comps. You have to go through an application procedure for that.
Gold's Gym in Mobile called me, and they have jobs for fitness instructors. So if you need some extra money, see me.
Brian, Gold's Gym in Mobile. I've passed the attendance board around the way we've tried to handle the convocation whenever there's one on the mentorships, that if you've gone through the convocation once, that you don't have to come a second time, although you're welcome to. And so if you haven't signed up that you were here today, please see me afterwards. Next, Dr. Bothell has a presentation to make. Dr. Bothell is the Dean of Communication, and he wants to talk to you on two matters, virus and also on distance learning program. Dr. Bothell.
Thanks a lot. You've been sitting here, how long have you been sitting here? For about an hour and 25 minutes, something like that. I think what I will try to do, I would like to take some time at a convocation, sometime in the near future, to really go into distance learning with you and talk to you about a little bit of the potential I think it has to affect the future of education in general, because I think it does have an awful lot of potential to do that. What you've been talking about has been distance learning, right? Mentorship, it's distance learning really at its best and highest form. And very honestly, educators have really screwed up when it comes to distance learning. They really have done distance learning in the past all for the wrong reasons. Really, when distance learning started, what they did was they thought, well, classes could get out to an outlying area that outlying area could never have. Let's say if it was in a specialty field like, I don't know, what's the specialty field that you wouldn't normally have a lot of students interested in a rural area? Neurosurgery, okay, in, Podunk, Vermont. But yet you had a half a dozen students in Podunk, Vermont. You could send a neurosurgery course out to them. And that's kind of how it started, but then universities, why do you think universities decided to expand distance learning? More money. Exactly right. And that's where we screwed up. Okay? Schools decided, well, if we had distance learning, what could we do? We could have one instructor and classes all over the place, and boy, couldn't we make a lot of money. And that's the wrong reason to have distance learning. Okay? And slowly, I think schools are learning that. And what they're doing, and two, one of the reasons why they learned was they didn't make any money. Because they found out by the time they bought technology for classrooms and the telecommunications expense and everything else, it basically didn't make them the money they hoped. So at any rate, I think educators have kind of learned a lesson. Still, the common distance learning program that you'd go into would be a bunch of cameras in a classroom like this, and there'd be another classroom someplace with some cameras and students and one instructor. And that's still pretty much the mode for distance learning. In fact, when you think of distance learning, it's probably what most people would think of, or it's what most educators would think of in colleges and universities. Okay. Well, again, hopefully we're learning that's not what distance learning here is at the academy. That's not what we think the future of distance learning is. What we hope the future of distance learning is trying to take into account how people learn, and really to try to support the learning process. And then the whole learning process is that you really don't have to be here in this room at this time to learn. But you could be in your home, you could be out on a mentorship, you could be out on the job, you really could learn any place. And you don't have to do it in a lecture mode where somebody's up telling you things, but experience teaches you a lot. Also, what we're finding is, particularly in the dissemination of research, it's kind of boring to sit down and read a research. Have any of you read very many research studies? Or how many of you in research? How many are a lot of you in the research class? Are you reading research studies now? Are they very exciting to read? As far as entertaining and keeping you excited? But yet, would it not be easier to watch maybe a videotape or pop a CD into a computer and have somebody come up on the screen and talk to you about the results of the study? I think it probably would. And I think as far as you talking about affecting coaches throughout the country and working in affecting coaching, affecting recreation, affecting the business of sport, there's other ways of communicating, okay, other than just textual in books or writing reports. And that's what distance learning is really looking at, and those are some of the things that we hope to get around to supporting here at the Academy. A really large monetary commitment has been made to put in a network here. There'll be computers for everyone here in terms of the faculty and staff. The computer lab now that's in the library will be completely networked. You can sit down at a computer anywhere in the Academy and talk to another computer anywhere in the world that's on the internet system. There are several sport science, sport psychology, sport information databases in other schools that you'll have access to. You can send email to professors. You can't get a hold of a professor, you can send them an email message. Right now, like Sport Discus in the library, sometimes when research papers come due, it becomes a little crowded because there's only one there. You can sit down with the network installation. You'll be able to sit down at any computer and access the Sport Discus. So there's just a lot of really exciting things that are happening. We're bringing in a recorder that'll make our own CDs. So we'll be making our own CDs here and providing course materials on CD. So in some courses, by next year, you won't be getting a textbook perhaps, but you may be getting a CD for the course. Or you may be getting a CD along with the textbook for the course that we produce here. So again, a lot of exciting things going on. I would hope maybe some of you might be interested in those things because, you know, we're interested in promoting sport. We're interested in really getting information out to people about what sport is really about. If you are interested, come and see me and talk to me. We see opportunities for students in the distance learning program, helping to make these CDs, going out and videotaping experts in the field so that we could have, if we're talking about law, we could have Appenzeller on a video talking to you and telling you what it's all about. And we'd like to see students involved in that process. Graphics, there's a lot of things we can do in the biomechanics lab, a lot of things you can look at in terms of movement and pictures and video and frame-by-frame recording. We can put that on a CD and have that be part of our courses. We'd like to see students involved in that kind of thing. And not this quarter, but in the quarters to come, we see some opportunities there for you if you're interested. If you're interested in graphics, if you're interested in video, if you're interested in promoting the sport, you know, let me know. And again, things will be happening, and maybe some exciting things even where you could get some money or some scholarship dollars or things like that in that field. So again, come and see me if you're interested. Again, you've been sitting for an awful long time, and so I know you're probably ready for a break and ready to go someplace other than this convocation. So I'll end there as far as distance learning goes. But again, I would like to have a chance sometime to talk to you in a little bit more detail about some of the things, because some of the things are kind of exciting. Maybe we can even show you some of the graphics and the pictures and some of the things that can be done. And we could even get some ideas from you about what students would like. The other thing, though, that I did need, it's really more in the form of an announcement. It's about the virus. And, you know, I think a lot of people have had trouble with the virus, with the flu. Well, unfortunately, our computers have had a different kind of virus. Hopefully, most of the faculty have said some things for you. You've seen the signs in the library, if you've been in the library, maybe. We have lost one major computer system in the Academy. It cost us about $1,000 to have it replaced. We lost the computer that has all of our mail lists for the Academy because of a virus. And that means we lost about 1.5 million names and addresses of people because of the virus. It has been very damaging to us at the Academy. We have had students come in and say, I went home, turned on my computer, and my hard drive wasn't there. My computer wasn't working anymore. And that's in the case of, I've had 2 students tell me that. They've lost their home computers by taking a disk and they had a virus and putting it into their computers at home. It's really a serious thing, and you know we need your help to get it fixed, because it's the kind of thing too where tomorrow a new virus could be created, and that was really part of the problem here at the academy. Some of the machines had virus protection software on them, but newer viruses infected the machines that the old software did not correct. So because it is serious, it is costly, and it is affecting, in a lot of cases, could affect you and your computers if you have computers at home or computers other places that you use. What we have done is, first of all, try to give you the opportunity to check your disks. In the library right now, there is disk protection, and disk checking, scanning, and cleaning software on the library machines. You can check with Jeff Calmetti, you can check with the people who are working in the library. They can help you check your disks and clean them. So we have done that. Okay? Some of you have had Joe Butterworth stop in your class to talk to you a little bit about the virus. He's our computer specialist here at the academy. If you wonder about your computer at home, or if you want to have questions about your computer at home, let us know, let Joe know. He can help you in terms of your computer at home. Because again, computers are not cheap. Well, I think many of you have purchased them, and so you know. And you don't want your computer to be ruined if you have it purchased. Or you don't want to ruin somebody else's computer. And again, I don't want to sound corny, or I don't want to sound like this is like this great and horrible thing, but yet it is. It really is. It's really something that can be very disruptive and can ruin machines. So at any rate, you have the ability to check your disks here. We can help you. We can help you with your computers in terms of you having problems. Also, within, well, I don't know, how soon can we have the disks? Well, can we have the disks ready next week for students if they want them?
We'll try and meet that as a target date by next week.
Okay. By next week, what we would like to do is have available for you, if you have a computer at home, a current virus protection plan, or software. Because I guarantee you, if your software is 6 months old, you're dead. It won't catch the viruses that are here right now. So you have to have current software to get the viruses. So in the library next week, if you're interested, and we would highly recommend you doing this for like $2 just to cover the cost of producing the disks, we'll have virus protection software available for you. So if you want to go to the library next week and pick up a disk for $2, take it home, it's yours, to put it on your machine. You can clean disks, it will check your computer to see if it's clean. We'll have that available to you. So for $2, I think anybody who has a computer anyplace other than here, it's a good investment for that, for $2. Dr. Ryder?
Yeah, I guess I just want to strongly reaffirm what Dr. Bothell is trying to tell you, and I think that Jeff Calmetti and Joe Butterworth are working really hard several times a day cleaning the hard drives of our computers in the library. But if our disks are infected with viruses and we don't know it, and we stick it in the machine, then the machine will be contaminated, and then you leave to go to your 1 o'clock class or your 3 o'clock class, and someone else who's got a clean disk, oh, I know that my disk is clean, sticks it into the machine, and Jeff or Joe hasn't been there in the last 15 minutes or something. It's just critically important that before and after you stick one of your disks in the machine, that we need to check. We need to check hard, because it's no fair for you to lose a term paper because your disk got infected, and it's no fair to give other viruses intentionally or unintentionally to other students or other faculty members. It's just completely unethical and lazy.
Will there be programs for Mac as well?
We can get you programs for Mac. As it stands right now, we have found no Macintosh problems. So we have been very lucky. We have found 5 different viruses here. I don't know. There have been 5 different viruses. So there's been quite a different variety of viruses that we have had. Now, as kind of the wrap-up thing here, we feel as though we've been, because of what Dr. Ryder was explaining, that we have been going through the library 2 and 3 times a day cleaning machines, and we come back an hour later and the machine's been infected again because a student has put a disk in that's affected and wasn't checked. We have no way of forcibly making you check your disks other than telling you that we will start, effective today, spot checking student disks in the library. If we find you with an affected disk in a machine, so what that means is if you put a disk in a machine that you have not checked, and you all understand we can help you check those disks, right? Okay, all you need to do is, if you need help, ask somebody in the library, please check my disk. Okay. So if we find that you have bypassed that, okay, and not had somebody help you check your disk, and we find an infected disk in the machine, the first step is a $100 fine to a student, or a faculty person, or anything. Because again, this is, what I was trying to do is get you to understand the serious nature of this before I just started saying, hey, but we don't, we need to have you take it seriously. So that's the first step. And there will be a fine. There will be signs put up. Here, there will be a fine. Second, if you would be found a second time, there would be some formal disciplinary action taken against you. Because we have too many students unhappy, in turn, and it's just not fair to other students who are checking their disks and keeping them clean to have them infected. And there's too much money at risk here at the academy in terms of the machine. So we really need your help with that, and there will be some real strong action taken on if someone's found with an infected disk. But again, you don't have to worry about it. All you need to do is let us help you check them. As long as you go and let us check them, you have nothing to do.
Well, in case of, when I was in there last night, a student takes independent course studies, and he hadn't known about what was going on, and he had like 3 viruses on his disk and it infected a couple of the other machines. But in that case, he didn't know anything about it because he wasn't in class and heard, somebody mention it. So just by word of mouth, should we just tell people that we see that?
Okay.
Here, or?
Right, yes, you should. And also, this convocation is a mandatory convocation. Everyone should be at this convocation. So I would hope we have most people here. Okay. But for those of you who you know that they are not here, okay, that would be great help to let them know. Also, there's not signs in there that clearly show that?
Yes, there's signs.
Are there not signs by each machine? There's a sign by every computer that says that.
Some of the 5 viruses that we have are very dangerous boot sector viruses. And if someone else, if you're checking your disks religiously and you're doing the right thing, but some of your fellow students or faculty members are doing the wrong thing, if you get a boot sector virus on your disk and you take it home, you have the chance of ruining your motherboard. I mean, we need to be careful here. We need to help out each other.
And again, we don't want to sound threatening or anything like that, but just a serious problem. We need your help to get it fixed, and that's the main thing. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. I would like to talk about distance learning in some more detail one of these days. Come and see me if you're interested. Thanks a lot.
Football Saturday?
Yeah, it didn't look like it was around here. New one, right?
Probably made it anything.
Just like maybe I was figuring out. I'll have to stuff where's that one be?
How can you tell the difference like green? Just get used to it. Yeah. Not quite. Yeah, I guess it's not quite.